And hello to anyone who is watching this after the fact, including you, Fred. Hope you're doing okay. All right, let us pray. Oh, Holy One, open our hearts to the knowledge that you are already at work, even in the shadows of our lives. Give us grace to live with anticipation, to see signs of God's kingdom and acts of kindness, beauty, and grace. May we dare to imagine what God is doing and what God can do in us and through us. Amen.
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 Amen, amen, amen. Okay. So this is our buddy Joey, the squirrel whisperer or squirrel barker. So a reminder, of course, that next Wednesday is Christmas Day, so we will not meet. And the following Wednesday is New Year's Day, so we will not meet. And currently, Randy and I are scheduled to take a couple of days away, the 6th, 7th, 8th. And so I would probably not be able to do it that day because I think we'd be checking out of our hotel right around this time. So if that changes and we're not away, then I'll let you know. But my current thought is that we'll resume on January 15th. I hope that's okay with folks. Whoops, sorry, didn't mean to preview that. Oh, stop. I hate when my computer does this. It's been acting really badly. Okay, stop. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to forget that. Okay. So anyway, if that's okay with you all, that will be a plan. And then we'll just be hungering for Bible study come the middle of all right. So we are deep in the story of Joseph. And Elon's been away. Does anyone want to just kind of very generally summarize where we are in the story? Oh, and Mark was away last week as well. Does anyone want to summarize what's been going on?
Oh,
I'll try. Maybe I missed stuff out, but Joseph is gone down to Egypt. He rose in the house, but then he got put in jail. I forget what he got put in jail for.
He was accused of
Yeah,
with the
he was running
mistress of
around
the
naked
house.
and falsely accused
Falsely accused.
of sexual assault. He's put again. He is a great guy and organizes things and is handling the prison. In the prison, he meets the baker and the cupbearer,
Good.
who had been sent down because of something they did. They have dreams about having their heads held high. And Joseph interprets their dreams. For the cupbearer, you're going to be raised back up and you'll get your old place back. For the baker, your head will be put on a pike or something like that. And he tells the cupbearer that when he interprets the dream to please don't forget me. But the cupbearer goes,
Yeah, John's connection, I think.
We lost John.
Yeah, he'll be back.
I didn't know if it was just me or.
Yeah, I saw you made it because I was thinking the same thing because mine is sometimes wonky. I'm sure he'll be back.
Okay.
And he set us up beautifully. So so Joseph says to the cupbearer, "Do not forget me." And then what happens?
He forgets him.
He forgets him. Guess what? He's human. Okay.
Was that false sexual assault charge? Was that the Potiphar's wife?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, exactly. She came on to him and accused when he rejected her. She accused him of trying to assault her. And so, yes, here he comes, connecting to audio. There he is. You're back. Is he frozen? Can't tell.
Sorry about that. I get.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I think your connection's a little iffy today.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking to us underwater. Oh, Zoom is great.
I can hear everybody else, but
Good. Okay.
you hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize.
That's
I'll
better.
not read today.
No, that was right now it's better. I don't know what changed, but all of a sudden it's much clearer. So, but thank you for your summary. That was perfect. That was wonderful. Great setup for us. All right. So are we ready to push on?
Yes.
This is a long chapter, 41. I'm wondering if somebody would read verses 1 through 36 for us, because I know it's a lot, but it's sort of all of a piece.
I can
I'll
read it.
try.
Oh, go
okay.
ahead.
You go, Kim.
No, you go, Donna. You go.
All right. I just took
Can
a
you see
cough
it okay?
drop. Yes, I took a cough drop and swallowed it, and we'll see if swallowing it helps. Okay. I mean, I didn't mean to, but anyway. Okay. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile, and there came up out of the Nile 7 sleek and fat cows, and they grazed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after them and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. The ugly and thin cows ate up the 7 sleek and fat cows, and Pharaoh awoke. Then he fell asleep and dreamed a second time. 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. Then 7 ears, thin and blighted by the east wind, sprouted after them. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump and full ears. Pharaoh awoke, and it was a dream. In the morning his spirit was troubled. So he sent and called for the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "I remember my faults today. Once Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. We dreamed on the same night, he and I, each having a dream with its own meaning. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving an interpretation to each according to his dream. As he interpreted to us, so it turned out. I was restored to my office, and the baker was hanged."
Right.
Keep going. Okay.
If you don't want to, someone else can pick up here.
Oh, I guess I'll go. Then Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was hurriedly brought out of the dungeon. When he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came in before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." Joseph answered Pharaoh, "It is not I. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the banks of the Nile, and 7 cows, fat and sleek, came up out of the Nile and fed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows came up after them, poor, very ugly and thin. Never had I seen such ugly ones in all the land of Egypt. The thin and ugly cows ate up the first 7 fat cows. But when they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had done so, for they were still as ugly as before. Then I awoke. I fell asleep a second time, and I saw in my dream 7 ears of grain, full and good, growing on one stalk, and 7 ears withered, thin, and blighted by the east wind sprouting after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. But when I told it to the magicians, there was no one who could explain it to me."
You up for
Then,
one more paragraph? Okay, there you go.
then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, as are the 7 empty ears blighted by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. After them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land. The plenty will no longer be known in the land because of the famine that will follow, for it will be very grievous. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. Now, therefore, let Pharaoh select a man who is discerning and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land, and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming, and lay up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to befall the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine."
Thank you, Donna. I know that was a lot, but it was great to hear one voice read that whole part of the story. So, where do you all want to begin?
I don't know, but somebody should make a musical of that.
It's kind of like 7 brides for 7 brothers.
Or Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Right.
Oh, I'm telling you, I can hear the music now. What do you think about Joseph and these dreams? You know, as you were reading, Donna, I was thinking this really is a fun story, fun part of the story. And yeah, we have to be careful because it's a serious business here. So what's going on?
Well, I think that Joseph really jumped at the chance to hint that he was the perfect guy for the job.
He is an opportunist, right? It's like, you should appoint somebody.
What do you understand?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And here's my resume.
That's right. Timing is everything too, right? So
Right.
We've lost John again.
What
Great.
about this?
Oh, go ahead, Donna.
What about this doubling? I mean, the doubling shows that God is it's from God, and I think it says something in the RSV about that's a kind of a thing in this story, is the
Mhm.
doubling, but
Yep.
I don't know why it should be a sign from God, doubling.
Well, and doubling has been a theme for a long time, right? Because when we've got even with Ishmael and Isaac, and then you've got Esau and Jacob, and over and over and over again, you've got these doubled. Um, we've got two brothers or twin brothers, and you've got Rachel and Leah. So it's definitely a theme throughout. And now we've got the doubling of the dream. So let's unpack that. Donna raises a great question. So you know, what about the doubling might suggest that it's from God?
Joseph's first statement was the dream is one.
Hmm.
He's seeing consistency. I don't know whether that indicates it's from God or not, but that may have been the understanding of the time.
I guess the meaning is one. The interpretation can be the same.
Mm-hmm. The doubling of Pharaoh's dream means that the thing is fixed by God. Yeah, that's just an interesting line because it almost sounds like a commentary rather than dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's almost like Joseph is stepping out of the text. I may be reading too much into this, but you kind of hear the editorial voice of whoever wrote this down,
Yeah.
perhaps putting that language in Joseph's mouth.
Why does the doubling mean that God will shortly bring it about?
Yeah, good question.
I mean,
Does Alter say anything about? Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't mean to cut you.
that was the point. Yeah.
Ray, does Alter say anything about that?
I'm looking right now.
Let me see.
I don't see anything. There's not a footnote there.
My
About
study Bible just says it is God who causes the doubling in order to convey a message. So it may be for emphasis. If I do it once, you may miss it, but if I do it twice, you might pay attention. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But yeah, it's so interesting throughout this whole section of Genesis. There've been, two of everything, it seems, or many things.
Both of the dreams are about the food supply, essentially.
Mhm.
And he discerned that was at least maybe that's the relation he saw between them as one, the sevens and the subject matter. But
It's interesting to me that Joseph refers to God will do this in the sense that Pharaoh is God there, but he is identified as a Hebrew, so Pharaoh will know he's got his own God.
Yes. And I believe that the Hebrew word here is probably Elohim and not Yahweh. Let me just double check.
Lords.
Yes, it is. And so Elohim again is the broader word for God, and it's always the eem ending is a plural, so it implies the gods. But of course, Elohim can be used for the God of Israel, sort of, in the sense of the Godhead, right? The might say the royal we. But it's interesting that that's the word that gets used there. It's not the personal God. So it could be, it could be the Egyptian gods. Who is it? Ra is Ra the sun god? But it's not clear, right? But Joseph does attribute this power to God. If you remember back in chapter 40, when he's first asked to do the dream interpretations, the baker and the cupbearer say to him, "We've had dreams and there's no one to interpret them." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Please tell them to me." So, you know, he attributes that power to God and then assumes it for himself. So we can interpret that as we might.
I did find Alter's footnote, and then one part of it here says, the name he uses for the deity in speaking is Elohim, a term that has general currency among polytheists and monotheists, and not the particularist Yahweh. So you were right on.
Excellent, excellent.
If we agree with Alter, it must be correct.
Well, I think so, because I think his interpretation is so helpful. So here you have the Egyptians turning to the Hebrew for the wisdom of God. What else do you wonder about? I mean, in some sense, the dreams are pretty straightforward. Oh, I know. That in verse 3, in the dream about the cows, then 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after them and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. So I've kind of got this image of these ugly, meager, hungry cows kind of hovering over the healthy ones. And then they eat them up. It's kind of a horrific dream, right?
Part of those cows, yes.
And as far as we know, cows don't eat other cows, and ears of corn don't eat other ears. But in this dream, that's what's going on. So there's this dream of consumption, of almost rapacious, ravenous hunger. And Joseph, of course, interprets that to be about the coming famine. What else?
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
So Joseph turns out to be an interpreter of dreams. How does he get this? And why is that? Why is it important that he have this power? Not everyone has it. It's not as though his fathers have it or his brothers have it, but he does. What's going on that God has given Joseph this ability to interpret dreams?
Great question. You always ask great questions. So what's that about? Remember, he has the dream when he's a young man with his brothers. And what happens as a result of that when he shares his dream? I guess it's more than one dream.
It's up in Egypt.
Yeah, he ends up in Egypt.
First, he's in the pit.
Yeah, because his brothers somehow resent his interpretation that everyone's going to be bowing down to him. Go figure. So, I think we said last time, Joseph doesn't necessarily know how to read a room, although he's learned to be somewhat more of an opportunist, as we were saying before. So what does it suggest in this culture about Joseph being able to interpret dreams? What's the function of that, to go back to Mark's question?
Well, he seems to be to have found favor with God, and God's gonna he's going to make sure that Joseph succeeds, no matter how he's set against by his brothers and by Potiphar, and God is watching out for him. He's favored.
Excellent. I'll just go back to, maybe it was in chapter 39 that we read about. Yes. The Lord was with Joseph and he became a successful man. His master saw that his master being Potiphar saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hands. So, as Donna says, there's something special about this one. The sole Hebrew down in Egypt, we think he's the sole Hebrew, at least the only one we know about. And he's been given this gift of interpretation, and it's a two-edged sword, because the gift ticks off his brothers and they betray him and he winds up in the pit, and he's using the gift to climb up the ranks in Pharaoh's household. And it's interesting because over and over again he says, it is not I, God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. He attributes this gift to God, whether he's humble or not. At least he does say that much, right? So what's his plan? So he gives Pharaoh this advice. What's his plan?
To become the overseer?
He's going to be the overseer. And what's the advice he gives to Pharaoh?
Well, they seem to be able to have, we would have silos, but I don't know what they had, but they had to have some way of storing the grain. And
Yeah.
they're warned that bad times are coming and you've got to protect yourself. Can't eat it all up. Got to put away a fifth. And I thought was that a fifth? Am I right there?
Yeah, it was a fifth. Mm.
And that's an odd fraction, I thought.
It's an odd fraction. It is very much so.
Isn't when Mormon people, okay, I had this Mormon boyfriend when I was in high school, and they had 7 years of food in their garage.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Like I think it's for Armageddon, but it's 7 years. I'm pretty sure it's 7 years. I just wonder if there's any, I don't know,
Could be.
biblical relation
Yeah.
going back to this.
Oh, I had never heard about that. I can't
Mhm.
conceive of having 7 years of food in the garage.
Who does?
I'm with you, Fat.
Oh, it's hysterical. It was like boxes and boxes of Cheerios.
Like
Because-
Costco, right?
I mean, it was just, I'm going to look it up on here. But it's really, yeah, they do that. I don't know.
I
Interesting.
know that the Mormons lay food by like that. I've never heard it 7 years, but it was.
Okay. So this is what it says. In the early days of the Mormon Church, the members were counseled to have a 7-year supply of food on hand. And my ex-boyfriend's family, for whatever reason, the mother, I guess she had converted to being Mormon. They weren't really practicing, but this was one thing that they did do. You know how like everybody kind of picks and chooses? It's like a cafeteria plan with religion. You can smoke cigarettes, but you're going to have that 7 years of food stored up. And they did.
I love that, the way you phrased that. That was great.
Yeah, I guess he'll have Joseph be sort of the overseer of this food storage system.
I think a lot of the archaeology, they're always finding grain storage jars, huge clay vessels that can be sealed against the rodents and all. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't see that you could. Well, it's the kind of thing that a human being can handle. It's not like a big silo. It's smaller containers, but nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of those artifacts, apparently, what I understand. So
Mm-hmm.
they may have been more prevalent than we knew.
Yeah. I'm reminded of the parable that Jesus tells in Luke's gospel about the rich man who, has has all this plenty, and he says, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we shall die." And instead of saving up, he's profligate, he's wasteful, and I wonder if that's meant to be an echo back to this story in Genesis of, being shrewd, being careful, being a good steward. Yes, these are good times now, but famine is a coming. And so best to be prepared for it. Going back to what you said, Donna, I thought that 1/5 was an odd fraction as well, because I often think biblically of the tithe, right? And give 1/10. But 1/5 it's a lot to be saving up. But there's wisdom in that. Anything else that strikes you all before we move on to the second half of the chapter? Well, maybe we'll want to come back to it after we read about Joseph's rise to power. So, would somebody like to read the rest of chapter 41 for us?
I can read it.
Thank you.
Okay. The proposal pleased Pharaoh and all of his servants. Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find someone else like this, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has shown you all this, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall," I'm guessing because I can't say, but
Sorry.
"you shall be over my house, and all my people shall
Sorry.
order themselves." Oh, can you make
Sorry.
it a little bit bigger? Oh, it's okay.
Sorry. I'm
Oh, it's
telling
okay.
this computer's been doing weird things lately. Okay. Let me
Okay. Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah, and let me get it
Okay.
back to where you are.
Okay, great.
You
Okay,
see that
perfect.
now? Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I see it. Okay. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only with regard to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." Removing his signet ring from his hand, Pharaoh put it on Joseph's hand. He arrayed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in the chariot of his second in command, and they cried out in front of him, "Bow the knee." Thus he set him all over the land of Egypt. Moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without your consent, no one shall lift up hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." Pharaoh gave Joseph the name of Zaphenath-paneah, and he gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, as his wife. Thus Joseph gained authority over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 plenteous years, the earth produced abundantly. He gathered up all the food of the 7 years when there was plenty in the land of Egypt and stored up food in the cities. He stored up in every city the food from the fields in every city the food from the fields around it. So Joseph stored up grain in such abundance, like the sand of the sea, that he stopped measuring it. It was beyond measure. Before the years of famine came, Joseph had 2 sons, whom Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore to him. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, "For," he said, "God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house." The second he named Ephraim, "For God has made me fruitful in the land of my misfortunes." The 7 years of plenty that prevailed in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in every country, but throughout the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph. What he says to you, do." And since the famine had spread all over the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the world came to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain, because the famine became severe throughout the world. He's making money.
He's making money. Making money. Just looking at the names of Manasseh and Ephraim.
Mm.
Manasseh means making to forget, and Ephraim is related to the word for fruitful. So once again, we've got this doubling, right? Two sons. Everyone seems to have two sons, except for Laban, who has two daughters. So what do you notice here? What do you want to talk about in this part of the story?
Just first, Alter has a little different take on the name Manasseh.
Oh, good.
His translation is meaning God has released me from all the debt.
Oh,
Dit or dith?
And the naming pun is on the verbal stem. Made me, the universal construal of this is made me forget, but it must be said that the root in that sense occurs only 5 times in the biblical corpus. 2 or 3 of those are doubtful, and so forth.
so it may be, forgetting in terms of, forgiveness of debt, right? When your debt is wiped out, it's forgotten about.
Yes.
So God has made me forget all my hardship. Perhaps another way to translate that is God has forgotten my hardship and, my, and my father's house. Interesting. So
My study Bible says that the names, Manasseh and the other one, become tribes who live in Canaan later. And I mean, I think the Zindiku, we're doing all this time on Joseph, yet he and his line are going to basically disappear from the story, I think, after this. Although they apparently wind up, at least according to the study Bible and Joshua, I think it cites, to be living in the land of Canaan later.
yes. I'm looking at my study Bible. It has a very similar note to that. Mine says the names Manasseh and Ephraim are made to signify the psychological remoteness of Joseph's native land. In context, a profound, if thus far rare, glimpse of Joseph's inner life. So he is, we might say, in exile from the land of Canaan, where his family is. He's down in Egypt. And of course, this is a theme that goes over and over and over again. We mentioned last week, who else was from Egypt?
Hagar was originally.
Hagar. Exactly. Hagar was Egyptian, which means that Ishmael is part Egyptian. And so now Joseph is marrying an Egyptian and having sons who are part Egyptian. So here is this guy who has gone down. He's a sojourner, a foreigner in the land. And that's a theme that's come up over and over and over again, right? Someone not being of their own land. And that note kind of suggests that those names reinforce that he's not home anymore. But there he is. He's very shrewd and he's making money. He's not giving the bread to the people of Egypt. He's selling it to them. So Pharaoh's coffers are getting fuller, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else do you know?
Stepping outside the Bible story here, is there anything in other history records about this famine or about um, uh, a person of Hebrew extraction becoming the second in command of one of the pharaohs?
That's a
Is
great question. That is a really good question. And I don't know that.
Well, Moses was second in command to the Pharaoh, wasn't he?
Hmm? Mhm.
Moses.
Yep. And the Moses story will have some doubling of the Joseph story in that way. It's an interesting question Mark raises, because thinking about the Moses story, the Exodus story, which is so essential to Judaism, is not recorded in Egyptian history. Is that because the Egyptians lost and, it was such a tragedy, or is it that it didn't happen quite that way? We don't know. We don't know. So that's a great question. Is there an historical account of this Hebrew guy going down into Egypt and rising in the ranks and, being so shrewd? That is a good thing for me to look up for us, because I've actually never thought to ask the question. So I'm glad you did, Mark.
Mark, were you asking also whether there was any record of the storing of grain in plentiful times to use in famine?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's such um, it's so precise. I mean, 7 years of famine and seven and the sale of the grain that there might be some other place where it's recorded. That's all, and I just don't. I've never thought about it, but it occurred to me as I was reading this that there might be some other place where
It's a great question.
this
And
was.
it never occurred to me before either. So we'll find out. The other theme that seems to keep coming up with Joseph is about his clothing. When, way back at the beginning, when Pharaoh sends for Joseph and he's brought up to the dungeon, he shaves himself and he changes his clothes and he comes before Pharaoh. And we know that, of course, he was originally given this coat of many colors, which is then stripped from him when he's in the pit. And the coat is taken to Jacob as a sign, covered in animal blood as a sign that Joseph is dead. Then when he is with Potiphar's wife, and we talked about that last week, she grabs onto his garment, which is not the coat of many colors, thanks to John's shrewd read. And she uses that as proof that he was there and that he attacked her, which of course he didn't. So, and then when he rises to power, he, let's see, where is it? Removing his signet ring, Pharaoh put it on Joseph's hand. He arrayed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. And all that makes sense, right? That the outward appearance would manifest what's going on with his status. But it's really interesting that the text keeps talking about his clothing. We don't get that so much with some of the other characters. So this clothing is important to Joseph's story and how he is arrayed.
The altar footnote, one of the altar footnotes here is the change of his name as well. The change and Zephaniah, whatever. The change from Egyptian name is of a piece with the assumption of Egyptian dress and the insignia of high office. The name may mean God speaks, he lives. As
Ooh. Let's just see what it says. if the interlinear even tries to. Okay, what does it say? Zaphaneth, Panea. Come on. We must be patient. Come on. Ah, okay. Okay, let's try this again. So that's verse 45. It's coming. Come on. Oh, good Lord. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for that. A name given by Pharaoh to Joseph. Okay, but this says treasury of the glorious rest. All right. Of Egyptian derivation. And there are a few Egyptian words that make their way into this text, which I think is also interesting. All right, well,
It's
that
completely different altars. Say.
Yeah, I would go with altar, I gotta say.
But considering with, yeah,
What were you gonna say, Ray? Sorry.
I was just saying, considering that the winners get to write history.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um,
Yes.
This is foreshadowed by Tamar and Judah. Is that
Yes. Beautiful.
she took his I don't know what it was, some sign of his authority. And was it a ring? Did she get a ring too?
I think it was a ring, or it was either a ring or a bracelet or something. Yes.
And then she uses that as proof that he has attacked her.
Exactly. So again, doubling in the story. Yeah. Excellent. Anything else here?
I'll just mention my study Bible says that the Egyptian name, according that he's given, according to the Hebrew commentary, translates as, what does it say? He deciphers the concealed. So it's sort of a tip towards the interpreting the dreams.
Excellent. So there are lots of different ideas about the meaning of that name. Ray, can you tell us one more time how altar translates it?
The name may mean God speaks, he lives.
Ah, okay. That's more connected to what John just shared. He deciphers the concealed. That makes more sense than what the interlinear said. That didn't make any sense to me at all. So we've got this revelation and concealing, yet another theme, something that's hidden. We've got the theme of abundance. And it's also interesting that Pharaoh puts all of this in Joseph's command and control. I mean, that's such an act of trust, right? To say, this is my servant and he is now risen in my household and is, has this power. No one shall raise a foot or a hand without his consent. So, he's got the control over all of Egypt, which is pretty remarkable. Well, of course. Oh, go ahead, Donna.
No, it is remarkable because he doesn't really produce anything up front.
Exactly.
I mean, he gives this 7 years is a long time.
He's very strategic.
Yes.
I can't imagine a similar prediction today that would not be treated dismissively And along about the third year of gathering the grain, they would say, see, nothing has happened. And, I mean, this is against our version of human nature.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Real
These are
act of
really good
faith.
points. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even sure we would wait 3 years, right?
we-
But your campaign promise was, and we go to that place, right? And we want instant results. And of course, we know that seven's a good biblical number, right? And seven is the number of completion. And God created the world in 6 days. On the seventh day, he rested. God rested. And there is something about that seven that should kind of shimmer for us. Whenever we see seven or 40 or 3, these numbers that repeat themselves frequently in the text. Well, I wanted to share a couple of pieces of art. There's my boy. Come on. Okay. So there's this one, Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dreams. Any reactions to this? I gotta say again, I didn't find a lot of decent art when I was looking. There was a lot of kind of schlocky clip art that didn't illuminate the story at all.
Well, he seems to be captivating everybody's attention.
Yeah.
I just wonder why there are 2 people seated there.
Maybe that's his second in command that Pharaoh references in the story. Who they're going to go out into the city with in the chariot or whatever.
And it looks like that guy is a scribe of some kind. It's like he's down. But yes,
Modern clipboard.
What's that?
It's a very modern looking clipboard that he's using.
Yeah. Staples. And Pharaoh is thinking, is reflecting on this, is taking it in as Joseph is telling this tale. And then I've got another one a little bit earlier, the triumph of Joseph. And there he is.
Going about the land.
What's that, Ray? Sorry.
Going about the land.
Exactly.
It's a troika, 3 horses.
Everyone is looking at him. Look how muscular he is.
That was a good-looking guy.
Well, and that's what gets him in trouble with Potiphar's wife, right? That she's very clear about that he's easy on the eyes, and so that's why she is interested in him. All right, and then one more. This one's older and thus harder to see. And as with Hebrew, you read it left to right. So it starts down here with the dreams about the cows. And then over here in the left, you see Joseph and Pharaoh. They're kind of tight. And the rest of the court is over here a little bit more removed. And then, well, I won't talk about the lower panels because that would give away the next chapter. So I won't do that. Yeah, I'm not sure how helpful any of those pieces are in terms of illuminating the story, but I like to share what I'm able. All right, anything else before we quit? All right, so again, we're making our way through Genesis. We've got 9 chapters left, and most of them won't be quite as long as this one, so they'll go quickly. Granted, we're taking 3 weeks off, but we ought to be thinking about what comes next. So if anyone has ideas or preferences, just shoot me an email, let me know your thoughts, and we can talk about it and look ahead to the next read. We will, I started to say we'll definitely be finished with Genesis before Lent. I don't know that, but Ash Wednesday is late this year, so I'm hopeful. At the rate we go, I don't know, but we're definitely going at a quicker clip with this story than with some of the others. All right, anything else, friends?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas
Merry
to those I
Christmas
won't
to
see.
everyone.
I hope
Merry
you are
Christmas.
well, and I hope that I'll see the rest of you. Donna, let's hope that you make it to church. That would be the best Christmas gift yet.
For me, yes.
And for the rest of us too.
Let's do that.
And so
Thank you.
dearly missed. All right.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you. Be
Thanks,
well.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.